Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about how to use some of the modeling, the sketch tools for patterning. In other words, creating copies of the same thing with a set interval. I'm also going to include the mirror tool because that kind of goes along with this, but they are, patterning and mirrors are slightly separate. So first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and create a sketch on one of these planes. Oops, put it on the front plane, sorry. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make something. So you've got your patterning and mirror tools are right up here. Here's your mirror. Here's your patterning. You've got linear patterns, circular patterns, and transform. We're not going to use transform right now. We'll talk about the other two. So for the mirror tool, what that's going to do is going to create some sort of symmetrical object. So whatever you've got on one side, you're going to have the exact mirror image on the other side. And when you change one, it's going to keep up and change the other one, which is a really nice feature. Lots of things in real life are symmetrical. So that can be very helpful. So what you're going to do here is you're going to create like a half of whatever you're doing. I'm going to use the y-axis as my mirror line, just as an easy way to kind of make that. And I'm going to make just some sort of like Christmas tree shape. And since I'm using the y-axis as the mirror line, one thing I want to make sure that I do is I want to connect to my mirror line. I either want to connect to my mirror line or I want to make a completely enclosed shape on one side. If I connect to the mirror line, then that's going to create one continuous shape that's connected in the middle. Or I can create a shape over here and mirror it, and it'll be completely enclosed here and completely enclosed here. So when I click on the mirror tool in the sketch environment, it's going to first say select a mirror line. So I'm going to click on my y-axis, and now it says select entities to be mirrored. So I can just go ahead and drag over the ones I want, and it just automatically mirrors them to the other side, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Now at this point, you can see if I change any of these things on one side, it's going to automatically change them on the other side. So I could play around with this, get it where I'm happy, and then go ahead and extrude it. The other thing I could do is I could create an entity that's completely enclosed on this side. Let's do it down at the bottom. Let's just say I made a circle there. I can still mirror it. So I can mirror it over that, and I can select that entity, and I'm going to get it over there. So two options there, either completely enclosed on each side, so on the first side completely enclosed, or using the mirror line as your completely enclosing piece. You don't actually have to draw it in, but that way it is enclosed once you've made it. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of those. Then what we can do is we can talk about the actual patterning tools. So patterning tools are either going to be linear, or maybe a better word would be rectangular, because we can make them in like just one row, but we can also make like an array, like 3 by 2 or something like that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just make whatever shape you want to pattern. Maybe I'll make a pentagon or something here. So I'll make my shape. Let's say it's a pentagon. A good idea is to dimension it before you start. So if I want a 1-inch pentagon, maybe use some of these constraints to get it how I want it. Maybe I want it to be horizontal. Maybe I want it to be a set distance above the origin and a set distance away from the origin, whatever. The idea here is get it where you want it first, because you don't want to be worrying about changing that first one once you've patterned it. Get that first one set. That's some good advice. If it doesn't need to be set, then you don't have to worry about that. But get that one set first. So these patterning tools are a little bit more complicated than the mirroring tool. They're not going to give you as much help. So if I select the linear pattern, it doesn't say anything, first of all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the entity that I want to pattern. In this case, this hexagon. So I'm going to drag over my hexagon. And you're going to see it automatically is making a linear pattern here. I can do a couple of things. I can click on this arrow and I can just drag it out. You'll also notice that I have the number here. I can change that. If I want them to be all 2 inches apart, I can make them 2 inches apart. I can set the number of them that I want, 3 or 4. Maybe we'll just go with 3. And I've also got this up and down axis here. So I can make just one line of them, but I can also make like multiple lines of them. So here you're going to see I've got 1x. If I change that to, let's say, 3, now I've got 3 rows. And I've got this new dimension here, which is the dimension up and down, how far between them. So maybe I want 2 inches between them that way. And so now you can see I've got a 3x3 grid of those pentagons. If I wanted them to go down instead of up, I can just double click on click on that arrow, and now they go down instead of up. I'm going to go change this to 2. I think 2 is what I wanted. Now, the last thing you can do is you don't have to put these directly horizontal. That's kind of a nice feature. If you grab these here and move them up, it'll actually let you create an angle out of these, which might be really useful. Most of the time, I'm sure you're going to have horizontal versions of these, but you might want angled too. One thing to know is once you've made that angle, there's no automatic way here to set it back to perfectly horizontal. It might be a little bit off, but that's okay. You can change it after the fact. So if I click off to the side here to end it, you're going to see these are all still blue because they're at an angle. We don't know that angle yet. I can set it. You'll see this construction line comes up here. Now I could go in and say, yeah, I wanted those to be horizontal. I can change that after the fact. But if you don't change it originally, you won't have to worry about that either. You could also at this point go ahead and put a dimension on that, between there, and that would let you set a specific angle. So if I wanted them at a 25-degree angle, I could do that there. But if you don't touch that little square at the first point, then they're automatically going to be horizontal and vertical. So that makes your life a little easier that way. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the circular pattern. I think the circular pattern is actually a little bit easier. So we're going to go back to just the pentagon here. And now we'll use the circular pattern tool. So same deal, doesn't tell you to do anything, but you're just going to select the feature. Now it's got a few options here. The first one is going to be this 3x. I can change this to whatever I want, whether I want 6 of them or 4 of them, and it just automatically equally spaces them for me. Really great. Another thing I can do is I can set the center point. You'll see it automatically selected the origin, which is really great, but it doesn't have to be the origin. If you want it something other than the origin, get it close, and you're going to see you can't dimension it now, but you can dimension it later. So if you wanted to do something else, you could do that. Usually you'd have some sort of a circular feature already that you're putting this onto, so you'd want to use the center of that. The last thing you've got is this arrow, which lets you set how many degrees you want this to be over. So maybe I want 4 of them to take up 180 degrees, and it'll equally space them in 180. Or I can just drag it all the way. In this case, since I'm only doing 4, all the way is 270. But if I were to do 6, all the way is going to be 300 because that last 60 degrees is the last one. So lots of options there. Then I just click the check mark and I'm done. If you hadn't put the center at the origin, just to show you that real quick, put that back to 6. Let's just say I'd moved the center over here and I clicked. Now they're not constrained, but I can go ahead and just put that, tell it where that center should have been. I could also have just selected that I wanted it to put it back at the origin too. So there you go. That center point is up to you to decide where you want it. And if you want it back at the origin, you can certainly just put it back at the origin. And that works like that. So not so bad. That's your patterning tool. Usually you'd use this with things like circles for holes, not pentagons, but whatever. Okay, so that's your patterning tools in the sketch environment. There's also a video about how to use these patterning tools in the 3D environment. They both pretty much do the same thing, but it's kind of up to you which one you prefer. So lots of options there, but take a look at that video too and see which one you like better.